Hey, friends, Dr. Jenny here with drjeg.com. And welcome. I am so excited to be here talking to you today. So, one of the biggest things that has absolutely changed my life is the concept of small hinges. And I only actually heard this concept a few years ago when one of my mentors made the statement that small hinges swing big doors. And I was like, what is that supposed to mean? What is that supposed to mean? I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. But I was thinking about it this last week because I have checked off a lot of the boxes in my life about where I want to be living, how I want to be living, what I want my life to look like. Most people one of the things I talk about a lot is how I wanted to create a life where I didn't have to set an alarm and I could wake up in the morning and drink my coffee and cuddle my kids and live in my yoga pants and flip flops. And I've achieved 90% of that. But there's still a couple levels that I haven't achieved yet. And of course, we're always going to have new levels, right? This is totally normal. Even when I hit those levels, we're going to have new levels. But there's always those levels that I haven't hit yet. And so, whereas a few years ago, I would sit here and say to myself, well, it's just not possible because. So, it's not possible because I have student loan debt. It's not possible because I own a business. It's not possible because things like that just aren't possible for me, right? Now I have definitely learned to ask better questions. Instead of saying it's not possible or why am I stuck here, I've learned to say things like, how could I see this differently? How could I make this happen? But even now, even asking those better questions, every once in a while, I find myself in a situation where I'm looking too far down the path. I'm looking for the actual doorway. And the problem is, you might be able to find the doorway, you might be able to find a potential path, right? But if that door is shut and we just sit there and we try to force that door and force that door and force that door and force that door and force that door, not only are we not going to succeed, but we're actually going to end up more tired and burned out than we were before. And that's where looking for the hinges can be so powerful. Tiny hinges swing big doors. So then I start to ask myself, okay, so here's this thing that I want, and I can see a potential doorway, I can see a potential path, it's there, but I'm not managing to make the progress that I want to make down it yet. So what are some of the hinges? If I'm feeling stuck, that means I'm trying to force this doorway open, and it's obviously not working and it's not feeling good. So what are some of the hinges? What are some little tiny steps that I can take to start to be able to make the progress that I want to be able to make? And a lot of times, those little hinge steps, first of all, are not anything dramatic. Like, it's almost easy to overlook them because they seem so simple, and yet they can make a huge difference. But also, sometimes they don't quite seem related. And so like, for example, I'll give you an example. One of the first things that I talk to my clients about doing, no matter where they are, no matter what it is that they want, is to start waking up 5 minutes earlier. Set the alarm for 5 minutes earlier, get up and spend that 5 minutes very intentionally in peace and calm and quiet, whether that means meditation or walking or journaling, whatever it is. Very intentionally spend that 5 minutes in peace and calm and quiet. And why do we do that? We do that so that we're very intentionally starting our day with that space, with that peace and that calm, because that impacts the whole rest of the day. And a lot of my clients, when I first say this to them, will be like, that's such a small thing. Like, that doesn't make any difference. And I don't have the time to do that. And I need my sleep, and on and on and on and on and on. And I challenge them to try it for a week. And I have yet, knock on wood, had a single one come back to me and tell me it doesn't work. Moreover, because they start to take that couple minutes in the morning and it changes the whole entire feel of their whole entire day, they start to get to the point where other things seem to be falling in place that didn't even seem related. So sometimes the tiny hinges don't necessarily even seem like they're related to the goal that we're going for. And that's part of why it can be easy to miss them. But once we know we're watching for them, then it can start to get a lot easier. So the first question is always, if we're feeling stuck, how do I see this differently? How can I see this differently? How could this potentially, possibly be working out in my favor? How am I benefiting from this? All different questions to try to get our minds to think in a different way. And then we can start to ask ourselves, what are the tiny hinges? And so we have one big goal left that we're about to cross off. So I'm not talking about what it is quite yet. But when I start thinking about the tiny hinges, the path was always, quit my job, move a whole bunch of states away and relocate my whole entire family and take that leap, which I've done that before. I moved 2 states away with no job lined up or anything before. So, been there, done that. It wasn't exactly the most, it totally worked out, but it's not the path I would usually pick, right? Because there's a lot of uncertainty there. So this time it's like, am I doing that again? Am I just going to like up and do all these things to achieve that goal? Or are there tiny hinges that I could start moving now? And as soon as I ask that question, there's a whole lot of tiny hinges that are lining up. And I'll tell you guys about this in more detail soon. I'm not trying to completely be mysterious. I'm just waiting until things, partly until we know how things are going to fall out. But as soon as I start to ask the question, what are the tiny hinges? So many possibilities because I asked a different question. So my brain suddenly has a question to answer. And that's the key to remember is our brains. If I tell my brain there's no path, then my brain's going to go, okay, there's no path. And it can't even see a path. But if I start to have my brain look at life differently by asking different questions, then I'm giving my brain a problem to solve. And suddenly it's going to be able to find the answers. So where is a place in your life that you've been feeling stuck? How can you see it differently? And that can be as simple as saying, okay, how can I see this differently? And then what are some of the tiny hinges that you may not have even known to look for until you started to ask the question? What are the tiny hinges that could start to shift you in the right direction without having to take the total leap that may not feel safe, that really doesn't feel safe for most of us because our nervous system wants to keep us safe and we're safe where we are, right? So what are those tiny hinges, those tiny steps that you can take? And if you're still feeling stuck, think even smaller. And as always, if this is something that you are really truly floundering with, that you're really truly feeling stuck, that you would love to have some help and some insight with, reach out to us. You can go to our website at drjeg.com to figure out how to work with me so I can help you along this path. We are happy to do that. In the meantime, look for the tiny hinges and ask the different questions. I am Dr. Jenny, and I will talk to you soon.